Hi there, welcome to Penn Central 99's channel. On today's video I'm going to install a Soundtraxx Tsunami sound decoder in one of my older style locomotives. I don't know if you remember a couple of videos ago I talked about some misfortunes that I had with the sound decoder. Pretty much fried it and had to send it back for repair or replacement. Well, I got the replacement decoder back from Soundtraxx. It is a GN-1000 and I'm going to install it in one of my older style Athearn locomotives. So let's go ahead and get started. This is an older style Athearn GP38-2. I've already got it gutted. These wires that you see, this is for the headlight assembly. These two purple wires here are for the speaker. Now previously there was a TSU 1000 in here. Now TSU 1000s are a little shorter in length, but they're thicker. So I had the old decoder up here in this corner of the shell. That's why you see the speaker up here in the cab. Now with the GN-1000, which is a little bit longer but it is a lot thicker, I am going to mount that here on top of the motor, and then I'm going to relocate the speaker to the back portion of the loco so you don't see it through the cab windows. I like using a GN-1000 because the capacitors for the keep alive in case of dirty wheels or dirty track and doesn't get any power are already incorporated into the board, instead of having the capacitor that's on wires and you got to find a place for it, because that will sit almost perfectly right on top of that motor mount right there. And I'm just going to use some two-sided foam tape to hold that in place. The speaker has been relocated from the front to the back, plus the wires for the headlights are still in there. I think this looks a lot cleaner than it did before. There's a lot more room. And now remember where our wires go. These two purple wires are for the speaker, so that'll get soldered onto the S1 or S negative and S positive on the decoder. And this is for the front headlights. Since the cab is pretty much done except for soldering the wires on, I'm just going to go ahead and move this out of the way so we can focus on the motor and the chassis. Even though this motor was isolated from the frame, I'm going to take it apart and show you what you should be doing to isolate these parts. And technically you're not isolating the motor from the frame, you're isolating the electrical pickups for the motor from the frame for the top and the bottom of the motor. So these older style Athearn locomotives, you see there's 4 screws there that hold the engine into place, and then you just need to slip it out of the drive shaft assembly from the flywheels and it'll come right apart. I have the 4 screws removed that hold the motor into the frame, and just as a suggestion, what I do is I got these little plastic containers. You can probably get them at any restaurant for sauces or whatever for your sides on your order. I use these on my workbench to keep all the parts in. That way I know where everything is and there shouldn't be anything left over when I get done. Now when you turn this over to separate it, this motor is just going to lift right up out of here. See, it's starting to lift away from the frame. Now you just need to work it away from the drive shafts for the flywheels, and it'll come right apart. Okay, that motor's out of the frame. I'm going to set this aside. We often hear, and like I said, about isolating the motor from the frame. Basically what you want to do is, see this contact? Okay, normally on a motor the bottom is the negative and the top is a positive. You want to keep that electrical contact from touching the frame. Okay, and that motor sits here, so the front part of that could, through movement, a loose screw or whatever, come in contact, and then you'll create a short and fry your decoder. So what you can do is you can use liquid electrical tape, a piece of electrical tape. Most people use that Captron tape or whatever, but what you need to do is you need to isolate this or insulate it so that it doesn't come in contact with that electrical pickup. On an Athearn locomotive, these older styles, okay, they get their negative pickup from the frame. The tabs I've already cut off for the front and rear positive pickup from the trucks. I just did cut that tab off to make more room for wires and a decoder and a speaker, so I'm just going to go ahead and solder the wires back on. The motor's back in the chassis, and I've got all the wires for the electrical pickup and the motor soldered on, and the ends of those tin, so that when we solder them right onto the decoder, it should be pretty quick. You notice that this is for the top of the motor. This one here is for the bottom of the motor. Got another front pickup right here, and this is the negative wire. I know that there's could be some standard color coding for wires. I don't have all the different colors. What I have is the leftover wires from the incandescent bulbs of my Athearn SD70E. I just cut the bulbs off and use those wires for these leads. Granted, everything's black, but I know where they go and where they should be soldered onto. I have a piece of two-sided foam tape on top of the motor here to locate the decoder. When you're doing these, you just need to be careful. You notice here in the front, it says front, so that needs to be facing forward on your locomotive. And like I say, this will just sit down here and hold into place. The nice thing about that is going to just secure that so that it doesn't move anywhere, and plus I'll be able to keep my wires on there without getting too carried away. I have tinned the connections that I plan on using for power, motor control, and the speakers. So this one's gonna be the right rear pickup, right front pickup, right negative pickup. Of course, we got our speakers here and our motor. So all the wires are tinned, so now we just need to solder them onto the connections. And I'll show you what we're going to do with the lights when we get to that point. Okay, I've got all the electrical pickup wires and the motor lead wires connected. The next step would be to solder on the speaker wires, and then we'll do the lights. Speaker wires are attached, and one lead for the light is attached. The reason for that is these GN-1000 from Soundtraxx are designed for Athearn locomotives, and everybody knows that Athearn still uses incandescent bulbs with their electronics, and they are 1.5 volt. So these sound decoders are designed for 1.5 volt lighting. But what Soundtraxx did is they know that some people like LEDs. So what they did is, and if you look over on this end of the decoder, you'll see, and it's upside down, but it's plus 14. That is 14 volts for LED lighting. Now, to do that, you need to solder the lead that has the resistor onto the 14 volt connection right here so that it'll work. Now, one of the other things that I learned from Soundtraxx while doing this is I'm not using ditch lights on this locomotive, but it has the capability of, there's F5 and F6. What I didn't know, especially when you're doing ditch lights, obviously LED needs a resistor, and it's like, well, where do you wire them up? Because if you notice, most everything else on here has a positive and negative sign for the correct lead. Well, when you look at your ditch lights, nothing's indicated. So I called Soundtraxx and asked them about that, and the trick to this is, you see that connection there is oval and that connection is rectangular. Oval, rectangular. Well, the oval connection is the positive lead. The rectangle connection is the negative lead. So when you hook up your LED lights and you're not sure, and you see that, you can see it on the back here. Oval, rectangle. So make sure that when you use LEDs with resistors, especially for ditch light, positive, negative, ovals positive, rectangulars negative. Okay, everything's connected and the shell's back on. Get it on the layout, we'll fire it up and see what it does. So far so good. Well, everything seemed to be working. It throttled up, horn, bell. Give it a little bit of throttle. Go backwards. It seems like everything is working. I just need to get the CVs programmed back to what they were, which will only take a couple of minutes, so that's pretty much it for this. Well, that pretty much does it for this video. I hope you learned something and I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, thanks for watching.